Hello and welcome to Permaculture Kerno's first online presentation from three of our wonderful students. They're going to present to you a design for a community garden in southwest England in the Rhine Peninsula, Cornwall. And this garden will double up as a school garden. So it's a very exciting project. And they've done a wonderful design for you. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy this presentation. Feel free to visit our website or email us any of your questions or leave them in the comments section below. Also, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more of our design presentations and get the live stream versions. Now, Linda, Rebecca, and Sylvie, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today here in Cornwall for our Millbrook Community Garden presentation. As a group, we've been working on this design for 3 months, meeting regularly, and since lockdown, continuing our communication via Zoom conference calls. Permaculture adheres to the philosophy of working with nature rather than against it, and the permaculture ethics are earth care, people care, and fair share. I'd like to introduce those involved in this permaculture design. Sylvie Gomez is founder of Permaculture Kerno, a retired sociologist who is very involved in voluntary work and environmental issues in our local community. Sylvie also runs a service point in for Kerno Credit Union in Millbrook. Joshua Gomez, who you've just met. Joshua has facilitated this permaculture course here in Cornwall. Josh is more concerned with helping people to unlock their own passions and skills, enabling them to become educators of the things they are inspired by through permaculture. He is founder of Eco Solutions and a registered educator for the UK Permaculture Association. He has been teaching permaculture since 2011, accrediting over 200 permaculture designers. Rebecca Pierce is an environmental social scientist with a background in horticulture, working for the Royal Horticultural Society as Principal Environmental Advisor. Her interest in permaculture stems from a desire to make the world sustainable through working with plants and natural processes, rather than engineering them out. My name is Linda Dunstone, and for the past 30 years, I have been actively involved in forging strong ties with my local community here on the Rhine Peninsula. I've worked in local schools, taught English and raised funds for local charities, organising large events, including the Maker Festival, and welcomed school groups, families and groups to this area. Having travelled extensively, I've seen firsthand the significant negative impact on the environment that we as humans have had on this once beautiful planet. I feel extremely fortunate at this critical time in history to be promoting a natural and beneficial course of action, not only in this community, but further afield. As far as I can see, permaculture offers everything we need to help restore our natural ecosystems, to enable nature to return and flourish once more. At the end of this presentation, please feel free to ask questions and send in emails. And if you would like to know any more about Permaculture Kerno, please visit the website, as we are running many courses starting at the end of this April, which you can dip in and out of. Thank you. Next slide.
So permaculture is just that. It's a permanent culture. It's a regenerative practice, just what we need in this rather complex time when we know that our land is degrading and we are struggling with climate change. The principles of fair shares, people care and earth care are critical now in every walk of life, but in a permaculture garden they can all be brought together. And one of the reasons why I'm interested in doing a collaborative venture like this is because it's really important for us to learn that these things can work really, really well. And we want to make best use of the land that we have, because we know that we don't need to cultivate as much as we already do in order to feed ourselves and sustain ourselves. We just need to do it better. And this is one way of doing it better.
Right, this project began by me asking around if anyone had some land we could use for a community garden. I was introduced to Ruth, who is a teacher at Millbrook Primary School, who told me that the school had previously bought a piece of land behind the school where they hoped to have a children's garden. And there were also some abandoned allotments there which may be turned into a community garden. This was the start of the plan design that we are now presenting to you, and we hope that the local community will help us turn this design into a reality which will provide a beautiful space for people to come together to grow organic food and children to learn about nature. We feel this is vitally important at this time when we're all faced with the problems of climate change.
So the location of this garden is in what local people call the forgotten corner of Cornwall, because it's a peninsula that's very easy to access by water, but it's not near any major trunk roads as such, and so has generally been bypassed. But that's a good thing, because it means the community look inwardly in Millbrook to support each other more regularly than they might if they were better connected to the rest of Cornwall. So a little bit about the land itself. It's historic medieval agricultural land, so it will have been tilled for an extremely long time, and the seed bank will be very much dominated by disturbance weeds, and therefore using permaculture on this land, where you really avoid digging, it's a no-till process, that will be really a good way of making this a garden that you can work with and enjoy, rather than following traditional practices of weeding and finding it very, very tiring. And every time you are digging it, you're losing more and more nutrients from the soil. And it's just about 20 metres below the South East Cornwall Plateau. It's east facing. The slope, it's quite a steep slope that's east facing. The predominant winds in Cornwall are from the southwest, but because it's an east facing slope, it's protected from those. Does, however, receive the easterly winds, though they are much rarer. When they come, they're quite harsh as they come up across the water, straight up the slope. But generally it's quite a good position, not perfect in terms of it being steep to get going and cultivate, but it does have some very interesting features, and the point of permaculture is to go with those features rather than trying to eliminate them. So we're about 20 to 35 metres above sea level, and that's a really good position to be. So the site has already been planted once before by the community and the children in the school. A number of years ago, they planted trees all around the perimeter and small copse, and they put in a pond near the school. And all those features are still there, although recently they've become, in some areas, quite brambly, which would be part of the natural succession. And some of the work that's been going on, when it's been possible to do so, has been clearing some of the brambles and just assessing how well those trees that were planted have done, and really appreciating the structure that was already created that we can now add to. So as I said before, it's a no-till activity where we can possibly avoid sticking a spade in the ground. We want to work with the seasons and natural cycles. And we want everything that we plant to have multiple uses. So we want food, we want medicinal plants, we want dyes, we want things that we can use for structures, we want fibres, we want things that make us feel good, things that look good cheer us up, and everything to work with nature as well as ourselves. We'd like to try and make the features multi-use, so where a path goes, hopefully there'll be perhaps a rill on the side of it to channel water. Where we're seated, perhaps we'll be on a log that's very great for wildlife as well as for us to sit on. So the idea is to try and create a multi-layered approach to the way we're going to implement the garden.
Okay, when we first started this, the first thing we did was we went up to the land to observe the land. We paced out the various beds with our paces, which we'd already measured how large our paces were, and we just looked at what was already on the land that we wouldn't want to disturb, and we looked at its potential with an eye to what we could do. We'd already decided that the triangle was going to be for the children because that's what the school had requested, so it was just looking around and seeing what was already there. Over to you, Rebecca.
Yeah, these are actually drawings and photographs from Debs, who I know is watching, who's been part of the process and initiated the original tree planting. And so, yes, we've observed. We've spent time observing. I think it's fair to say we probably haven't observed as much, or certainly I haven't been able to observe as much as I'd have liked to because of the lockdown. And I think that's really important to say that just watching and understanding the land as it is and observing the seasonal changes before you race ahead with anything is really important to do. So it's been a collaborative process, measuring, looking, identifying plants, wildflowers, cultivated plants that are already in some of the old allotment plots, trees and their habits and how healthy or unhealthy they are, and the different parts of the land and the different features, where it's wet, where it's dry. And we've created a number of base maps and drawings and ideas that we're hoping to, bring together in one design.
Now these are the zones. We'll talk about the zones. In permaculture, you have various zones relating to how much attention is needed in each zone. So for instance, zone 0, if it was in your property, it would be your house. And zone 1 would be where you visit daily. Zone 2 would be maybe where you visit once or twice a week. Zone 3 would be bulk crops. And zone 4 would be where you'd visit once a year, perhaps. So in our design, we have zone 1, as we haven't got a house, is nearest to the entrance from the road and incorporates the polytunnel and the top garden and the composting area. And this is zone 1 because all these areas need to be visited often. Now they would be in the colour of green. It's the green colour. Zone 2, which is the orange or yellow colour, is the children's garden, containing fruit trees, fruit canes, shrubs and perennials, and a forest garden that needs less attention and will be visited less often until the children start planting their own choice of plants. And then the children possibly would have to look after their own plants more regularly. We haven't got zone 3 because we haven't got any bulk crops. But zone 4, which is the blue, is the boundary of mature trees that previous children from the school have been involved in planting. This zone would need little attention except for occasional pruning. And zone 5, which is purple, is an area which is left completely alone and undisturbed for wildlife. You can see this is beside the fence to the west of the top garden. So it's not really affecting any of our paths. This is an outline of what we would like to see in the garden, but the plans may change as the land shows us what is possible and what is not possible. And the people who become involved share their ideas and wishes of what they would like to see in our garden.
Yes, so here we have our design as a watercolour. It shows here the two areas clearly. We've got the children's area, which is the triangular shaped one, and then the square, which is the other area. We can see that we've got a lovely large space here, already surrounded by many, many different species of trees and shrubs. What we did was we asked the children what they would like. Children at the moment have got quite a lot of time on their hands, so we're hoping that they will fill out this diagram here and just tell us what they want, what they don't want, what fruit they'd like, what animals and wildlife they'd like to attract, just various features, visions and aims, and the produce that they would like to be able to grow. So we're waiting to hear back from the children, and this has gone out to the various schools in the area, and also to the homeschooling children who, you know, they'll benefit from this as well. It's for everybody. It's a community project. Next slide, please. Yes, so in this lovely triangle here, we've got a great space, 28 metres by 23 metres and 33 metres. You know, it's a large area. We feel that it's so important to grow food. Food is essential at this time. The more fruit trees, nut trees, anything that is food that we can grow is so important. So we've started by putting in plum trees. We've put in Coe's Golden Drop Organic, which is a beautiful golden plum. And we've also put at the other end of the triangle a Plum Czar Organic. Both of these trees will come to fruition in late August, early September, so will be perfect for when the children come back to school in the autumn term, and they will be able to pick them and enjoy them. Coming down from the top, we've decided to put the veg beds at the back there. There'll be raised beds, mulched beds so that they won't need watering so often. We're using a lot of straw, we're using a lot of compost, and making sure that those beds are, you know, fully mulched. We'd like to introduce, again, we're waiting for the children to give us their ideas, but we'd like to introduce a strawberry patch. Always goes down well with children. Lots of colourful plants like rainbow chard, potatoes, pumpkins, the things that they would like to dig up and to use. In permaculture, we learn, particularly I like the examples of the Three Sisters. There's so many different old cultural points that are brought out, and the Three Sisters, I think it came from South America. You grow your sweet corn, so you have your tall plant, you then grow your bean underneath your sweet corn so that can wind its way up, and then for ground cover you grow your pumpkins and your squash. So these are the types of things that we'd like to share with the children. We've also planted a willow igloo, which is doing very well. And there's enough space in that igloo for probably 10 to 12 children to go and play in. Around the boundary, we've got a willow fence. What we've done is we've done an entrance that at each side of the entrance, we've got raspberry and blackcurrant fruit canes. So it'll be a real edible garden for the children. In front of the fruit canes, we'll put in wildflowers to make it bright, and we'll put in California poppies and nasturtiums, marigolds, cornflowers, and anything else the children want to share with would be great. We come down to a spiral herb bed, and we'd like to put in perfumed herbs like lemon verbena, lavender, rosemary, to make that really attractive to the insects as well, and to make it a colourful and scented area. We also have here a grass seating area. So we're going to have plenty of turfs taken up when we make these raised beds, so we can then create this lovely half moon seating area, which will be great. The children can actually push plants into it and put flowers or vegetables or whatever they want to grow in there, sit on it. Hopefully the plum tree will create a nice amount of shade for them. so they can sit under the plum tree on their grass seating area. Like with gardening, with any garden, you have to think about years ahead on many on many levels. Plum trees take 4 or 5 years to really come to proper fruit. So, you know, this project isn't for now. It is for now, but it's also for the future. We would have a tool shed as well in this area. The tool shed would have guttering all around it, and we would probably have at least 2 water butts. It's going to be essential here to collect as much water as we can. Just the slides now show the children digging in the garden there, and the willow igloo, tool shed, etc. On the tool shed, it would be really lovely to have a wildlife camera. So we're hoping to have that on there, targeted towards their area, so they can see if a hedgehog comes in, or perhaps a fox, or it'll make it even more interesting for them. The gardens are linked by the bark chippings paths, and it comes down into zone 1 that Sylvie mentioned just now. And this garden has been designed using petal leaf sort of design. So we come into this one now, again a lovely size, 14.5 meters by 14.5 meters by 19.5 meters, so a great size. Enough space in here to have a really good red currant, black currant and gooseberry area. We had a lot of red currants and raspberries already left on this patch, so we're leaving those, and they're growing very well. But we wanted to also have another herb spiral. This can be created by using bricks, stones, blocks, anything that you have. They work really well. They're a way of growing a wider range of herbs, each of which enjoys different moisture and light levels. And you can even have one of these in a relatively small area. We often see these spiral patterns in nature, so that's why it's so lovely to use the natural leaf look, or the spiral. We see that in a snail's shell, that particular pattern. Using this system is great for retaining the heat absorbed during the day, and it helps the herbs to grow, and it helps to insulate the garden at night. It keeps it warm when the temperatures drop. We could introduce herbs like rosemary and oregano, thyme and basil, mint and cress, fennel. Hardy herbs would be great. So that should look really lovely there and smell very nice too. As we take the path through, we can see we've got a raised veg bed area, and we would like to do successional planting here. So we would make sure that we had our winter crops going in. So next September, when the children come back, they can plant in their area and we can plant in this area, and we can have garlic, broad beans, all those things that go through the winter for the following season. We then come along our bark chipping paths towards a sensory garden. And a sensory garden is a wonderful space to have to stimulate our senses and become a calming area. And this area has been thought of there particularly because it overlooks the estuary as well. So it's got an amazing view. Be able to sit there, smell all the wonderful herbs, and look out over Millbrook's lovely estuary. Coming down again, we've got an insect and a wildlife area with a bug hotel, buddleias, sage, a log pile for hedgehogs to hide in, and any way that we can find to attract wildlife, we'll put there. We've also made a raised bed in this area, just along onto the corner there. It's a large raised bed. It's 1 meter by 2 meters. It's already got sweet corn in it, and kale, and artichokes. And behind that, we've got rosemary growing, and also more fruit bushes. we have artichokes, a wonderful amount of globe artichokes, which have come on from somebody's previous allotment, and lots of rhubarb. So it's a great area. It's all growing really well. We've put a wood-fired pizza oven there, and we were hoping that in time, in September, October time, we'll have a workshop and build that into the space there. That leads nicely into this area here with the polytunnel and the outdoor seating area. So here we can create a communal area for people to come and enjoy time together. The polytunnel will also have water collection, so guttering and water butts, so that we can water inside the polytunnel as well as other areas. And inside the polytunnel we could plant grapevine, citrus. The children can have it as an outdoor classroom. It would be fantastic on a rainy day. If the teachers want to take the children in, they can sow some seeds and just see what's in the earth and what's actually around. So that's our hope, that will happen soon as well. Wormery as well we've got there, so that's another interesting. All you do, put your compost in, make sure that it's got a lid on it, and all the juice that comes out the bottom the worms have made, and it's a fantastic plant feed, so we can use that.
These are the paths that you can see linking the top garden to the children's garden. The paths will be either mowed grass or wood chip. The mowed grass paths will be wide enough for a mower, so they'll be at least 2 meters wide, and the wood chip paths will be at least a half a meter to 1 meter wide to allow easy access to visit and work in the garden. The no-dig beds will be easily reached from the paths to avoid any walking on or standing on plants. We are hoping eventually to have 2 entrances to the top bed to accommodate a wheelchair access. We intend to have herbs such as lemon balm, thyme, etc. growing in the paths for the senses to enjoy as you walk along.
Water is very important in any kind of garden setting, and there's no reticulated water on this site. There are, however, if you see the raindrops here positioned, there's a well or spring here that runs very well, and there's also one that's certainly was bubbling away when we were having all the rain, probably isn't running now. This spring does overflow onto the site, and also a lot of runoff comes off the road and down this central path when we have heavy rain. So bearing in mind that our weather seems to now flip-flop between it being incredibly wet or incredibly dry, we need to really pay attention to how we hold moisture on the site, get it to the places we want it to go, keep it there in dry conditions, and don't suffer from any kind of erosion or problems when it's really wet. So we hope to achieve that by using some swales. One in particular we hope to run all the way along the bottom of the cultivated area. This would serve 2 purposes. It would keep this part of the field that's used as a sort of football field by the children drier, and this part wetter. At the moment, the site's very interesting because at the top tree-lined area is already very wet and holds a lot of moisture, which doesn't seem to make sense. It runs along a contour line, and then the slope seems to be very dry. But that's obviously how it works. It must say something about how the site has been cultivated in the past, and also the underlying geology. But working with the path structures that we've got in the beds, we would try and use rills alongside these to take overspill and runoff down to the planting areas that we really feel will be quite thirsty. parts of the cultivated area are very wet and probably have underlying springs, and we intend to do some dowsing there eventually. We'd also have a swale at the top of the site alongside where the polytunnel area is, in order to again hold on to moisture at the top rather than letting it all just run straight to the bottom. If we're fortunate enough, we may be able to get water to run all the way to the children's area, because the only method of storing water in the children's area that we'll have will be a water butt on the shed, capturing water from the shed roof. There'll also be a water butt capturing water from the polytunnel, but we know that the number of weeks of dry weather we're likely to have in a run will certainly deplete those resources. So long before it starts to rain. So we need to try and make best use of the water as it is on the site. But also we've got a lot of vegetation, and the more vegetation cover you have, the better the microclimate is that you create, and that shades the soil and stops it from drying out. So over time, it should become a much more balanced ecosystem. So to summarise, so far we've come up with a design. It's a collaborative process, and we are waiting for more input from the children and from the community. But this is something we hope we can run with as a starting point. It contains all sorts of interesting features like grass seating for the children and willow shelters, places for tools, places for growing food, places for enjoying the herbs and scents and flowers, but also more practical spaces. The polytunnel could double up as an outdoor classroom, plenty of seating, places for communal cooking, and composting, so that we don't send any of our organic matter off site. It all goes back on to the same place, so that we keep recycling the nutrients. And hopefully in the end of it, we all get good things to eat, and we all get to grow as a community.
We've talked about plants and what's already growing there. We want to make sure that we've got nitrogen fixing shrubs and trees, and we have a couple of alders still to plant. Alders grow into very large trees, so we want to make sure that we position them in the right places. But you know, we have a variety already of silver birch, hazel, hawthorn, ash, elder, wild rose, oak, sea buckthorn, berberis, plums and willows, and we will plant as we go on more and more. We've talked about some of the fruit trees. It's always nice to plant more, so we will hopefully do that. Fruit bushes. We like to plant perennials because it means that they are not going to have to need much attention every year. They're going to stay with us, and you know, that's an important part of it. And as many vegetables and salads as we can get in the ground and people will want to eat, we'll plant. Herbs, and I've talked about herbs and herb spirals. Yeah, so you know, it is all about food as well as beauty, and you know, food is such an important thing for us to be thinking about when we're choosing a plant at the garden centre. I think sometimes we need to think, is there any part of it we can eat? Because you know, in these times we're living in, we need to make sure that we are sustainable.
So we are hoping that by September, when this lockdown is all finished, we can involve our local community in making a weekend workshop. This could involve making charcoal, digging swales, maybe even building a pizza oven. And hopefully, if you're in the area, you'd like to join us. We will advertise this in the Permaculture website and the Permaculture Facebook page. So please look out for this in the future. Tomorrow we are meeting up for an implementation meeting. So any local people who would like to be involved, if they emailed us at the Permaculture website or the email, we'd invite them to the meeting tomorrow. So thank you once again for listening to us today. And again, any questions can be sent to the Permaculture website via the email, which is on your screen at the moment. Okay, thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you. We just wanted to each of us give you our definition of permaculture. Permaculture produces a sustainable, holistic culture with a long-term vision for future generations to benefit from. And also our feedback, because this has been a fantastic course that we've just done. And I feel personally I've learned a lot, not only through the course, but through the collaboration of working with people like Rebecca and Sylvie, Deb and Helen, Demelza, all the different people, Dorian, you know, there's been a lot of people on this course that have really had fantastic input into my learning and education. If anybody is interested in going online and having a look, the website is up and running and is offering courses locally and through Zoom. So, you know, I would say go ahead and find out as much as you can. What it's done, it's enabled me to feel confident in implementing new methods, practical methods in my own garden and making life easier for myself. Permaculture does that. You know, with the no dig, no till, it really does make life a lot easier. Please contact us via email if you're interested in a garden design. If you'd like us to help you with a permaculture garden project in your area or your school or your village, then we would love to help you. So thank you from me as well.
Permaculture, my definition of permaculture, this was right at the beginning when I first started the course, and really it's the same now. Permaculture is a framework to create sustainable ways of living for a healthy planet and a healthy society. And I've found the course to be really, really informative, and I've learned a great deal of practical skills to use in my garden and hopefully in the community garden. And it's been a real joy to meet everybody. Thank you.
My definition of permaculture is fairly simple. I think it's planting people in the landscape with nature rather than people dominating nature and doing things to the landscape. The course has been really helpful for me because I've always lent towards permaculture. I've been practicing horticulture all my life. When I've done it professionally, I've had to temper my tendencies to lean towards permaculture, basically to suit other people who have wanted things to be done traditionally and in a manner suitable for an English garden, without understanding how damaging some of the things you do in English gardens can be. So it's been really great to meet up with people that also have a different way of looking at the land and thinking about nature. And some of the discussions we've had have been really profound and very, very interesting and deeply thoughtful in terms of our understanding of what we're doing to the land, what we're getting from the land, how it makes us feel, and how we should approach it. So it's been very, very helpful, mainly to give me confidence to just do my own thing and ignore the people around me who are traditionalists.
Okay, thank you all for tuning in and watching this presentation. Either visit our website or email us or put any questions or comments in the comments section on this live stream. I will be uploading an abridged version of this for people to watch later, so please feel free to share. I look forward to hearing from you all, and I'm glad that you all tuned in and enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.